Curvo was off the highway 10 miles on a gravel track that made a giant curve east and then north again and marooned the town, which was only a red clapboard building, 2 glass bulb pumps, and a file of butchered outbuildings with the desert open all around to every direction. He could see that all the outbuildings were cages of various sorts, patched in with coiled chicken wire to permit inspection from the outside. The largest coop, a square weathered shed built of sawed 2x4s with the door removed and fresh chicken were basted over the opening, had a newly stenciled sign that said zoo. He stopped between the pumps and the building and looked out the woman's window waiting for someone to come out. The building appeared to be a store, and the plate window was flogged with red fishing bobbers and plaquettes of leader line, and a pair of split cane fishing poles crossed corner to corner. A rooster crowed from down among the cages, and he heard it flap its wings as though it was trying to get away from something. "Where is everybody?" the woman said, lifting her hair off the back of the neck. "Some kids work here. I seen this old flatbed last week. Beep the horn." She grabbed at the wheel, but he caught her. "I get out," he said, taking a look back at the cages. "What's your name?" he said. "Jimmy," she said. "Jimmy what?" "What's yours?" she said, aiming her chin at him. "Robart." "What is it?" she said. "Robart? That's a damn poor name." "You're real sweet," he said, shoving the door to. That is from Richard Ford's novel A Piece of My Heart, published in 1976, 44-year-old novel. If you follow this channel, my name is Rainer, this is Rainier Books. If you follow this channel, you know that I said earlier this year that I intend to read the whole work of Richard Ford, one great American novelist born in 1944. And I didn't follow Ford in recent years. I haven't read so much of him. I only knew that he was sort of a very prolific American writer, had won the Pulitzer Prize, and that he has won the PEN/Faulkner Award in the same year with his novel Independence Day, and that he is extremely popular and well received in Germany, for example, in my native Germany, and that he's writing essays about the situation in the United States, and that he's seen as one of the great voices of American literature. The reactions to my announcement that I would read a lot of Richard Ford were pretty non-existing on BookTube, and only one of you wrote that, "Oh, he's not my piece of cake." And I was wondering, okay, something might be wrong here. So I started reading A Piece of My Heart, and then I was looking at some pages on the internet, and I found out that Richard Ford has been involved in a lot of, or not in a lot of, but in at least 2 incidents in the recent years where he has aggressively attacked authors who wrote bad reviews about his books. The first one was back in 1987 when 1986, when Alice Hoffman wrote a negative review about one of Ford's books, and Ford took one of his revolvers and shot a bullet hole into one of Alice Hoffman's novels and sent this book back to Alice Hoffman. The other thing that happened and that got much larger, it was like revived this year, is the incident that like 14 years ago, Richard Ford spat Colson Whitehead directly in the face on a party because Colson Whitehead had earlier written a negative review about a short story collection that Ford has written. So this is not a very nice, very bad reaction actually to react on negative reviews, and I absolutely distance myself from this, of course. But let's speak about A Piece of My Heart that was written in not written probably, but published in 1970. But it's his first novel, and it's his debut novel, and this is playing in the American South. Ford was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1944. He was formatted his life in the south of the U.S., and when he started out, he said that he felt almost obliged to do it with a novel that was situated in the American South. So this is a novel about 2 men, Robert Hughes, that's the guy who made the first description here of that little town on the back roads. The other character is Sam Newell. Both of them are meeting each other. They're coming from different directions. One is coming from California, the other one is coming from Chicago, and they meet on an island in the Mississippi River, an island that is not situated on any map for different reasons. Hughes is someone who is following a very negative, very destructive sexual relationship to his cousin Buna. He's married, but he's sort of very attracted to Buna, who's married to WW, a very aggressive, dangerous baseball player. And Buna writes letters to Robert and tells him to pick her up. And the descriptions of places, of characters, of situations, the telling of stories in this novel is extremely dense, extremely well shaped and well built. Like if Richard Ford is an author who's working with a scalpel, how he is putting sentences together. And when you hear him speak about language in interviews, you understand that he's like carving his literature into sentences, and language plays a very important role for him. And here is a lot of tradition of storytelling of the American South. This book reminds me of William Faulkner. It reminds me of Bruce Springsteen. It reminds me also of Sam Shepard and his. It also reminds me of Sam Shepard and his plays. Lost and forlorn characters who are pretty strong characters, but who are not like living the normal lives that we all live, but who are living quite destructive lives with destructive relationships, and who have a story in their rucksack. On the other hand, I have to say about A Piece of My Heart is that I don't really, I had problems struggling with this novel, because this is like 300 in the pocket edition that I finally got from England, 297 pages. And actually the big action, that is, you can always, we're waiting for this all the time, because Ford is building up a story of these two male characters and the other side characters, and you really know that something bad is going to happen sooner or later. But this bad, without telling you what happens, is happening very, very, very late, like on the last 6 or 7 pages of the novel. And until then, it's building up. It's building up, it's building up all the time. I don't say that this is a bad novel, but this is so much build up that I would say, Richard, could you please do something? This is my criticism about it. It's really a book that you understand. It's a great writer. What Ford is doing here, he's always telling stories, or his character tells stories to the other character. Are like, I guess, the stories of the American South. Buck said that the old man had come down sometime in 1941 from Republican City, Nebraska, had sold his half of his father's pig farm to his brother Wolfgang, and moved himself and 2 steamer trunks on the train to Little Rock, and put himself up in a commercial hotel at the foot of the Main Street Bridge, and bought himself a Buick coupe and drove all over the country between Little Rock and Memphis looking for cheap land. And after not very long, Buck said, he bought 800 acres of swamp 15 miles back out of Hazen, land that no farmer had even thought to abandon, much less cultivate, since Lafourche Creek ran straight through the middle of and flooded every spring, leaving a solid counterpane of silt and randy water on top of the entire parcel, so that even the rice farmers had given up on it and just kept it for the duck hunting. He said that Rudolph, who was in his 30s and strong as a bulldog, had gotten hold of the land and practically gnawed every tree on it with his own teeth, and built up a maze of bar ditches and ramparts and iron sluice gates to channel the water out of the lows and into an old dead tree reservoir he dug out with 3 World War I scoopers. In a year's time, he got the land set up to be a farm, built a 2-story single house and a metal windmill, and transported an Austrian man and his family down from Republican City to live on it and run the farm, and promptly move himself out of the commercial hotel and into the R.E. Lee on Markham Street, and fell in love with a lady who owned it, and 6 more like it in Memphis and Shreveport, and whose husband had been drowned falling out of an inner tube on Lake Nimrod, leaving it all to her. Buck said that before very long Rudolph had communicated his feelings to the lady, a small, wiry, red-haired woman named Edwina, and that they were married in the hotel lobby with a bang, and that right away Rudolph moved up to her suite on the 11th floor and started ordering baskets of fruit and cases of whiskey and running the bellboys up and down the elevators, bringing him one thing after another until Edwina had to tell him the hotel was for other things than just to make him happy. And it goes on and on like this. Really great storytelling of those stories that happened in the old times here. And I was really, really disturbed by the use of the word Negro that Richard Ford still adapts here in 1976. This one one Afro-American man who works for the old man, who's sort of the boss of the island on which Hughes and Newell are meeting each other. I don't find it, but that happens quite often here in this novel. And I was really disturbed by it, and I thought to myself, okay, I don't know, I'm not an English speaker native English speaker, but in 1976, as far as I know, it was already not politically correct anymore to use that word. And I saw one interview that Ford gave after he wrote that novel, many years after he wrote that novel, where the interviewer asks him, why are you using that word? And then Ford says that it says innocently it, and if I offend Afro-American people by it, I regret that as well, and I will always come towards them and say, okay, I regret if you're offended, but I think I can use the word. He said even Martin Luther King used the word, but Martin Luther King, to my knowledge, was 10 years before this book was written, and things have changed in the 1960s. So I don't understand why he keeps on using the word Negro, which really, like every time I read it, it gives me some sort of punch. I'll come back to you hopefully tomorrow already with the best books of 2020. And I think I have to make a separation between nonfiction and fiction, because otherwise I have way too many books that I cannot decide on to put in a top 10. This is going to be super difficult. Wear a mask, socially distance. It's really, really necessary. And see you soon. Bye-bye.